Hi, welcome to Sportsy, Let's Talk Sports. So today we have with us Aahna Mehrotra. She's the founder of AIM Sports Law and Management Company and partner at TMT Law Practices. After having a wonderful chat with Aahna, the first woman in sports lawyer in India, about her journey from being an athlete to a professional in law. She spoke to us about her journey, about what the sports law field is for India, and how do you actually look at that industry to make careers. Today we are going to talk to her in the second part of our episode is about what is betting, what is fantasy sports, how do you differentiate that? At the same time, what is her Olympic dream, and what kind of career opportunities which are there for people who want to make career in sports. So please welcome Aahna Mehrotra on the part 2 of Legally Sports. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and thank you for sharing. But please do subscribe on the channel Sportsy Says that help us spread the word. We go by the same name Sportsy Says across all the social media handles. Please do subscribe on the channel Sportsy Says. So again, taking another thing from the another earlier answer that you had, other answer that you had. What is your take on legalizing betting and also the fantasy that the fantasy is not betting and it is game of skill? So what is your take on that?
So, I mean,
and how do you differentiate as well? How do you differentiate as well? Because now it is
right.
legally differentiated. So how do you differentiate?
So basically, we don't have a regulation, right? It's an unregulated market, so to speak, betting specifically. Since there is no law, we're making good use of the gray area that exists in the country at this point in time. Now, games of skill and games of chance by the Supreme Court is one of the judgments has been listed down. I'm trying to keep it less technical.
Yes.
Has been listed down as, no game is a game of pure skill or pure chance. It's basically in terms of what is the dominating element, whether skill is the dominating element or chance is the dominating element. And that's essentially how, in a particular case, Rummy was held to be a game of skill because you have to remember the fall of cards. You have to, place your cards in a certain manner, and that's when you throw your card. Basis certain factors is how Rummy was ruled to be a game of skill. Likewise, betting on horse racing was considered to be betting on a game of skill, so to speak, which is simply because you have to take into consideration the breed of the horse, the weather conditions, the performance of the jockey, how, various factors. And then, so it's a fair amount of skill involved. And taking from the Satyanarayana and the Lakshmanan case, basically, those are the two that I just quoted, is where now the position with regard to fantasy gaming has been set out. Similarly, that fantasy gaming, because you are in a position wherein you have to exercise a fair amount of skill, because you cannot select all players from one team, which would then amount to betting. So there is a cap in terms of the number of players you can select from one team. There's also a salary cap or the maximum limit that you can spend. So it's not like you can take the top 5 players from one team, top 5 players from the other team, and make your, playing 11, so to speak.
Right.
So there is also that cap. So it's possible that if you take, today, Virat Kohli, who's the top batsman, you might take Hardik Pandya, who's perfect at number 6 or whatever, and then you might take the ace bowler that there is, and then, I mean, someone like a Bumrah you have. So then you have to balance it out with picking up the players who are valued at a much lesser value, because you exhausted your most of your points selecting these top players who might be the best in the T20 format, so to speak, right? So there is so you have to take into consideration the current form of the player, also in terms of other factors like how a player performs. Maybe if it's an away game or it's a home game, and like in a cricket context, are they playing in India, are they playing abroad, what the pitch conditions are, what the weather conditions are, all of those things. So you have to be constantly following the sport to be able to understand, and that is when you're able to suitably pick your best 11, right?
Correct.
So everybody's exercising their own skills. Since there is a fair amount of skill involved, is how it is termed as a game of skill. Now, what the courts differentiate between is this: games of skill, basically when played for stakes, and games of chance when played for stakes. Now, again, this is a state subject to rule on. Betting is a state subject to rule on. So while there are certain states like Assam or Orissa, Telangana, which do not differentiate between games of skill when played for stakes and games of chance when played for stakes. So there you can't offer these fantasy gaming. And as recently as last month, you had Andhra Pradesh move into the similar domain, wherein now you can't offer games of skill for stakes anymore, which has been
Okay.
sort of a so yeah, you don't play Dream 11 in Andhra Pradesh anymore. Basically, that's what happened
How does
last
it
month.
work? It's in the cloud, right? How does it?
You have to set geo blockers, essentially that. So basically, when you log into Dream 11, I mean, of course, that
Yeah.
you have to enable your location. That's also how some of the other websites work. Like there are some states that offer online lottery. So
Right.
again, I mean, if you put in your address as anywhere else in terms of except the state that where that particular lottery is to be offered, you'll not be able to access the website further. Similarly, I mean, in this scenario, the apps you're supposed to be feeding in what state are you coming from, or enabling your location so that they can
Right.
track the geolocation, right? And that's when you set up geo blockers
Oh
in
wow.
particular states. So that's what I'm
Just
saying. That
making
with
just
the
making life complicated.
with the advent of tech, it's quite. I mean, you have to understand the tech side of things to that, which you're an expert at, for that matter. You have to
Yeah, because
understand the tech
that's why
side.
suddenly I started saying that okay, if I'm there, that I think VPN will work better for me. Uh,
That's what most people do. I mean, that's what most people do, to be honest.
exactly.
But that's the workaround to it. But yeah, so
But
these
what
are
about the
states.
actual baiting? So this is about more of a game of skills, the game of
Right. So
chance, the
which, I
typical game
mean,
of chance, which is not legal in India as of now.
right, that's correct.
So
So, I mean, I'm all for betting being legalized, and that's what I was saying, that with Andhra Pradesh having taken the step that it took as recently as last month, it was a bit of a step back. But
mhm,
again, one has to look at it that we're coming from a country where betting, even though existing from ancient times, is looked upon as a vice. And also, unfortunately, we don't have the kind of checks and balance mechanisms or the
yeah,
control mechanisms that they have put in place in Europe. Like in Europe,
mhm,
they monitor your betting patterns, right? So
correct,
if you've lost an X amount of money, which is also a factor that Dream 11 puts into play, that if you've lost an X amount of money, either your account is shut off till the time you get an email saying, hey, we've seen that you've been betting a lot. Are you going through some sort of stress in your life? We have
yeah,
a psychologist available. Would you like to make use of that service? Question also
yeah,
that can you afford to lose the kind of money that you've lost? Yeah, they
correct,
have all these monitoring patterns set out in Europe, so to speak, or elsewhere abroad where betting is really popular. In India, I mean, that we are also dealing with such a large illiterate
yeah,
population, who, and especially where, in villages, the constant complaint, I think, of women is that my husband goes out to work, earns some money, but also spends it all on alcohol in the
yeah,
evenings. So that's the unfortunate truth of the society we live in. So here, from their perspective, you're looking at introducing one more vice into the society, that okay, now they're going to lose all their daily income, daily wages on
right,
things like betting. But that being said, I mean, sure, those are not the people who are going to anyways access online betting. It's said that around about $130 billion is what the Indian betting market looked like, in terms of numbers, in at the end of 2018,
mhm,
which was basically, it had grown from about 85 90 billion, which was in 2012. So in a 5-year
mhm,
span, or it had, grown to over 50% of that number. And that's how the unregulated betting
yeah,
market is. And also, like, estimates like about $200 million are bet on every cricket match that India plays. So
yeah,
those are the kind of statistics out there, and you can probably earn. And given the current, especially the way the economic situation has been impacted because of COVID, right? So especially in the current economic situation, I think even from a government perspective, you can earn taxes which are estimated about 20,000 odd crores per year
yeah,
if you
only
regulate
on that.
betting. Yeah. So, I mean, taking all these factors into consideration, I mean, I'm all for betting being legalized.
Yeah,
Till the time,
and
of course, there are those the checks and balances that are put in place, even from a point of view of corruption in sport, right? Because the whole
correct,
adrenal rush for all of us is the uncertainty of the result as far as
yes,
a particular match is concerned. The moment we know that this is what the result is going to be is when we lose interest. And that's why there's not so much value in the rebroadcast of a particular
correct,
match where result is already known. Or for that matter, like I always say, I mean, the economics of sport works in the absolute reverse manner as far as uh, competition is concerned versus other
Mhm.
industries. So in an Apple or Samsung case, the further you are from each other in terms of tech, the better you're bound to do, right? I mean,
Yeah,
today everybody goes and swears by an Apple laptop simply because they know that it's going to last you 5, 6, 7 years. Was an
yes,
HP laptop or anybody else who may last you only 3 to 4 years. So that, I mean, you're
correct.
also getting your value for money. So the further you are in terms of tech, the better it is. But as far as sport is concerned, the ideology of competition is completely reversed. The
Yeah,
closer you are, right? I mean, today I am definitely more interested in an India versus England cricket match or an India versus Australia cricket match than an India versus Afghanistan cricket match, simply because I know that the competition between India and England is much closer, and Australia is much
correct.
closer. And that's the excitement, right? In an India Afghanistan match, I probably already know that India is going to win the match, so I'm not so keen to
Mhm.
watch. So that unpredictability element is what the economics of sport thrives on as well. So if you can keep betting independent of corruption in sport, then yeah, all for it.
Excellent. And yeah, with even I've worked with Genius Sports in past, and we know that even the league low level games of Mumbai and Bangalore gets the betting happens somewhere in Eastern Europe for
Yeah,
on
yeah,
those games. So yeah, it's we don't know who is doing that, and it's too much good money to be made by government. But as you said rightly, we need to regularize the whole thing and have to consider a lot of other aspects. But good to
absolutely.
know that you somebody like you who supports this. I think it is good to know. So
I think all of us, you talk to any sports lawyer, they'll be like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
all for it.
exactly.
Maybe we have
And
personal agendas that our work will increase, but
yeah,
for
you
other
will have
reasons.
you will have a lot of work for sure.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Maybe we have all our personal agendas that work will increase, but also for other reasons, just
yeah,
economic reasons in general. I think it can definitely do wonders if it's a regulated market versus an
yeah.
unregulated one.
Right. So, just extension this question about now women's sport is picking up pretty well in India. Uh,
Hmm.
Cricket is now is looking real lucrative. Women has actually done far better than men in the Olympics over years for India. So, how do you feel about it being a woman athlete as well as a proponent of women in sports? So, what is that your message to the all the women out there about the women in sports and the sporting field and future?
I think we're no less, and I don't think one should look at it as or have a soft spot or some sort of sympathy with just because you're a woman in sport, right? You're an
Hmm.
athlete at the end of the day, regardless of your gender.
Yeah,
And all we're fighting for is, I guess, gender equality.
correct.
That being said, I mean, what I say that to my message to women athletes, for women working in sport, people like Vedahi, people like Anjali, or so many people out there, Deepti for that matter. I
Yeah,
mean, they're all doing such great work,
great
and they
job.
are
Yeah,
all heading the organizations that they are at. And so just take inspiration from these people and do put your best foot forward, and don't think that just because you're a woman you're any lesser, or for that matter, don't have let that play with your psyche in any manner, right? Don't ever let that serve as a psychological disadvantage.
yes.
Always make that your strength, so to
Hmm.
speak. And I mean, ever onwards, go forward from
Yeah,
where you are. So that's
yeah,
essentially what I believe in. And I think I've, I mean, of course, there have been several in my personal experience. I mean, there have been several, it's not always been easy. There have been several
yeah,
setbacks, but also I've been extremely fortunate that friends who are male have always stepped up to support. So it's not
yeah.
like everybody's going to put you down. I mean, I still remember there was an untowardly episode that I had in 2016 while at a conference, and there was another fellow Indian sports lawyer who was there, who really stepped up and stood by me. So I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, that it's not that even as competitors in the industry or whatever, that we're always out
Yeah.
there to stab each other or to put each other down. I think there's a lot of mutual respect if you're doing great work, and everything flows from there. So if you're till you're doing great work, I think you're going to move forward regardless of whether you're a woman or a man.
Wow. And my question was not to become sexist or talk about anything, but I think that you put it properly where it's like this is gender equality, nothing else. That is what we're talking about. But I think very well said
Yeah,
about just being true to your work and having respect, mutual respect, irrespective of the gender. I think having respect about what you do, what Dipti does, I think that the 100 men are not doing. what Dipti is
Exactly.
doing. So it's not about that, but I think, but we need the heroes, more and more heroes, or even the heroes for that matter, for to come out and have the inspirational stories to come out, because that is unfortunately that's what we have the baggage which we need to break the taboos. Uh,
Absolutely. I mean, so that's what, like, I think we did a webinar earlier in the year. I think that was my first during this COVID series, and it was a session that Sports for All had hosted. So again, it was with women in sport and Deepti, Mrs. Dani, Vedahi, we were all on that panel,
yeah.
right? So I said, I mean, again, it all boiled down to we shouldn't be so looked upon as that there's a general notion that, oh, she's a woman, what does she know about sport? Because the
Yes.
general notion is that sport is a man's world, right? But
Yeah.
also, and that's when I turned around and asked Rishi the counter question. I said, tell me, you work with a woman lawyer. Did you ever think about it that, oh, I shouldn't work with a lawyer because she's a woman? Or for
Yes.
that matter, I mean, so there are also those great men of supportive people from the opposite sex out there. I mean, and
Yes.
same works the other way, right? I mean, Nandan and Deepti share a great relationship.
Yeah.
He's obviously had that faith in her. She's grown the organization the way she's grown it. So also you have to allow somebody just the space to grow, whether you're a man or a woman, whichever role you're in. If
Yes.
you're, you have to support the other person. It's just
Yeah.
basically that. So I mean, it doesn't matter what
Yeah,
sex.
and I exactly, and that's for that. For one of my most favorite ads is the Nike ad that they call me crazy.
Right.
Or it's a phenomenal ad that
I
Nike made.
agree.
It's actually, even just thinking about it gives me goosebumps, and I use that ad anywhere I go in my speech and my talks, because that's what it's all about. Finally, you are crazy for what you do. So, what my last question to you, Anna, is about the people who are listening to this are also interested in making careers in sports law. So, what kind of courses are typically available that people can look at beyond doing the regular law degree, and
Mhm.
how do they make their careers in sports?
Well, so obviously, when I want to do a master's in sports law, there was nothing that existed in India. Also, I think I always wanted to go abroad for my
Hmm.
master's. That was very clear in my head. But today, when people ask me, I always tell them that no matter what area it is of sport that you want to specialize in, be it management, be it ops, marketing, whatever it may be, right? I say that don't jump into pursuing formal education without gaining the work experience. I mean, you might today think that being on the legal side of things is extremely exciting, but when you actually get down to working in it, you realize that, hey, it's not really the legal side of things that I enjoy. I just enjoy sports, so maybe management is more for me. I want to be on the ops side of things. I want to be on ground, or for that matter, maybe marketing is more for me. And same, I mean, so I mean, once you gain that perspective from practical training, right,
Mhm.
practical work experience, is when you realize whether or not you're actually interested in it.
Yeah.
And that's when you decide that where you want to pursue your education. I always tell people that a sport is still a startup industry today. I mean,
Correct.
there's only the three big corporates out there that have largely invested in sport, one being Reliance, one being Tata, and the other being GSW,
Yeah.
Jindals. So other than that, there are no big corporates that have invested in sport. And even those corporates, when running their sports businesses, they treat it like a startup business,
Yeah.
right? So budgets are always a constraint regardless of whatever, because it is at the end of the day an investment business, an investment
Hmm.
that you have to continue to do for a period of about 10 odd years before you start making that revenue. So you have to understand that probably the jobs that you get coming back to India, and today the immigration market everywhere is becoming the immigration laws are becoming so stringent that
Yeah.
people are not open to people from abroad working, or for
Yeah.
that matter their laws don't allow you to give them jobs, and no matter how good you may be. So the chances of getting a job abroad are limited, and that's when I say that if you're going to come back to India after pursuing a master's abroad, chances are that you'll have a job that pays you very very little money. So don't take a loan and go for your masters. I mean, that's my
Yeah.
because probably you're not going to be able to afford to repay the loan immediately upon your return.
Right.
So think those things through. If you have that you know gestation period of say 5 years, or that you can manage to sustain yourself, is when you finally get to a decent mid top level,
Hmm.
is when you start doing really well and it turns out to be extremely lucrative. In that process, obviously not lose patience, not lose hope, be determined,
Correct.
be persistent. So yeah, I mean, from that, if you keep these basics in mind, there are plenty of courses now available in India. I mean, FIFA Masters has started in India.
Yeah,
There's
they
also
started. Yeah,
GISB that runs a sports management program. A whole bunch of certificate courses have started in sports law. Almost every law school is now at least running I mean, at least the top 10 odd law schools are running certificate courses in sports law, an optional
correct.
subject, offering sports law as an optional subject. So those options are always there. As far as going abroad is concerned, I mean, like what I said in the beginning, right? Chase the faculty. So if you know that a particular, I mean, I was really fortunate to have professors who, did the whole, I mean, professionals who are also
Right.
professors, who, you know, sit on the CAS arbitration panels, or for that matter, a professor who did the whole NEMAR deal in terms of his transfer. So getting the, it's extremely important
Yeah,
to study the faculty profile. And if you're getting that kind of faculty at any cost, then that's the cost to go for. I mean, I wouldn't nail one particular university that, hey, this is great or that is not as good. It's literally
yeah,
about studying your who's, and sometimes again, faculty changes from year to year, right? Because of
correct.
availability of certain people in terms of their busy schedules or whatever. So it's definitely very dependent on what the faculty is like for that particular. Like I went to ISDE and pursued a second master's
Yeah,
only from the perspective of I really wanted a network. I used that as a networking opportunity because it was a course wherein professionals came to study it and was taught by professionals. So by
yeah,
the end of the course, I mean, today I have a network about at least 60 to 70 sports lawyers across the world in different countries. So I can pick up the phone on anyone and ask about a particular jurisdiction if I don't understand it or if there's ever an issue. Uh, so it was done completely from a networking perspective. And of course, after understanding the faculty, so faculty came from this organization called RecSport. RecSport
hmm,
is an organization about 40 top sports lawyers of the world who formed this organization called RecSport. So I automatically knew that, okay, if I'm getting access to the RecSport professionals, it
right.
will be terms of quality content, so to speak. So I mean, that's what I said. It's not so much about the university; it's more about the people who are teaching it as a faculty.
Yeah. I think it's a very important point that you just made here. It's about chase the faculty and chase the network that you're going to build from that. I think that is all about the thing, and be sincere about whatever you want to do. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'm a
yes,
relationship person. I'm not, people tell me that you put too many emotions and it's not good from perspective that you're running your own business. But I
yeah,
think that's what also takes me through because I'm a relationship person. So once people come to trust you, then they know that, you
yeah, and
they're well taken care of.
yeah, and it's a very well saying also, right? The people do business with people they trust and they know, and that.
Absolutely.
And being an athlete, always an athlete, whichever profession that you feel, you that the sports person in you never dies. So you're
That's true.
great, great. So I'm coming to the last segment of which I can go on and on for chatting with you, but let's use this time and we'll catch up on something else separately. But
Yeah,
on the
off the record.
on off the record, yeah. So one segment that you're talking about, like Sushil Kumar or even the badminton or table tennis that you spoke about, so these are all Olympic sports, and you also are very passionate about Olympic dream that you have for the country. You do a lot of pro bono work, and I know you work. You help Vaidehi with women in sports a lot at your own personal capacity as and when you have time. But what is that Olympic dream for you? What does it making India a sporting nation? What is that for you from the legal
Well,
perspective?
from a legal perspective, I mean, from a legal perspective, I think it's just about people understanding their
Mm.
rights, fitting into the realm of what really the laws of the game are, so that we're looked upon. See, the moment you follow the laws of the game as an athlete, right, you're automatically looked upon with a whole lot of respect. I mean, today, apart from the fact that Virat Kohli might be the best cricketer out there in terms of his batting performance, but I think a lot of people look at him for the kind of gestures, except when he's extremely
Yeah.
aggressive and things can get. But I think some of the basic gestures, like tying the other opponent's lace, or for that matter, just giving a pat on the back, or asking people when the crowd is booing a particular athlete, asking the crowd to stop it. Gestures like these, right? I mean, just people, athletes at large, who can be role models, who can sort of be the hallmark of what the sporting spirit really is from
Hmm.
an athlete perspective. I think that would be a whole long way. Of course, losing and winning is a part and parcel of it all, But like I always say, that when the one great scorer comes to write against your name, they ask whether or not you won or lost, but how you played the game. So it is literally about
Yes.
people knowing in terms of how best they can put their best foot forward while playing the game. So that is what it is.
Wow, and that is actually making a dream of a sporting nation where you actually understand the whole thing and be ambassador of the game and represent it the full heart. It's a phenomenal talking to you and so good to hear from you. And I think it is really appreciate your time and thank you for being on Sportsy where we just talk about sports.
Thank you so much, Sid, for having me. This was really fun and exciting, and hopefully we'll do more fun stuff in the future. Take care.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and thank you for sharing. But please do subscribe on the channel Sportsy Says that help us spread the word. We go by the same name Sportsy Says across all the social media handles.